Welcome to lecture 2 in our economics class, where we're going to look at demand, supply, and government interventions. So we'll begin by understanding the concept of a market. A market is a system where both buyers and sellers interact. Now, the market needn't be a physical place. It's a system that necessitates trade for goods to be bought and sold. So in the context of economics, we'll look at market forces and government interventions in this mechanism. So we have buyers, we have sellers, we have firms, we have factories, we have dealers, and we have agents. And so all these are key constituents of a market. And the commodities in this case we're looking at would be the goods and services. And we have geographical areas, Lusaka and Dola. These ones are important in the term market. And so the features of a market are such that a market need not to be in a particular place or locality. Buyers and sellers need not always come in the personal, physical form, like we are interacting now virtually. A market was created. So we should understand that there are laws that have been put in place. There's a law of demand, there's a law of supply. And these laws interact at some point. This interaction is at a point called equilibrium. So the demand function is downsloping and is given by the function A, BQ. Supply function is upsloping and is given by B in positive form Q. The law of demand simply states that for any normal good, an increase in price, P1, P2, will result in a decrease in quantity demanded from Q1 to Q2. So this is just natural and normal. So whenever prices are increased, you demand less of those products. That is what the law of demand stipulates. Supply, on the other hand, stipulates that for any normal good, if the commodity increases in price, it will fetch a higher quantity supplied. Good example is FRA. When the price of maize is high, they'll be more willing to supply. So if these two players are not regulated, they would exploit the market. So the supply and the demand should meet at a point called equilibrium. Equilibrium is simply a point where demand meets supply. So our supply is upsloping, our demand is downsloping. So these two will meet. The area under these two are called surpluses. So here we have area A and area B. Area A is called the consumer surplus. It is the area under the graph. So area A is called the consumer surplus. It's given by half times base times height. In this case, our base is what? 10. Our height is what? From 2 to 5 is a 3. So we're going to get 15 as our consumer surplus. Our producer surplus is area B. it is still given by the formula half base times height, where our base is still the 10 and our height is difference between 2 and 1, which is 1. So here we're going to get 5. So we need to add area A and area B to give us what we call the social welfare, the total surplus, if you like. So 15 plus 5 gives us 20. So this is what we call our total surplus. Now, how do we sketch a demand function like this? 10 minus 2q. You put the letters on one side and sketch. So the letter P has a 1 on this side. 1 into 10, we get a 10. The letter Q has a number 2 on this side. 2 into 10, we get a 5. So using an X or Y plane, we know P is always here and Q is always there. So we know that demand is downsloping. So it's cutting the P at 10 and cutting the Q at 5. So that is how we sketch this. Demand sometimes will be in terms of Q. You can say 5 minus 0.5 P. The same principle, you put the letters on one side. So here we're going to have Q plus 0.5 is equal to 5. What number is on letter Q? There's an invisible 1. 1 into 5 is 5. What is on P? 0.5. 0.5 into 5, it is 10. So the P will cut on the 10 and the Q will cut on the 5. So this is the same equation that we just had. So this gives us our demand function. So this demand function is called the inverse demand function, which is in such a way that P is subject to formula. On the other hand, P in terms of supply can be given by 10 plus 2Q. So you put the letters on one side, P minus 2Q is equal to 10. What number is on letter P? 1. 1 into 10 is 10. Here on Q, negative 2. Negative 2 into 10, negative 5. So in this case, it will look slightly different. So negative 5 is there, positive 10 is there. So this will give us our function P is equal to 10 plus 2Q. So this is our supply function. So we know that when demand is equal to supply, what we get is called an equilibrium. So suppose our demand function is 100 minus 2Q, and our supply function is 10 plus 3Q. So we need to plot these equations. To start with, demand is the equation with a negative gradient. Supply, the equation with a positive gradient. So if we're going to calculate these ones, we're going to have the following calculated. So 90 is equal to 5Q. We divide both sides by 5. We're going to get our Q as 18. So when you substitute the 18 into any of these ones, usually I like the supply function because it's straightforward. You also get the same figures. So 18 times 3, we're going to get 54. 54 plus 10 is 64. So we know supply function is upsloping, demand is downsloping. The point where they meet is called equilibrium. So how do we sketch that? We put the letters on one side. So P plus 2Q is equal to 100. There's a 1 there. 1 into 100, it is 100. 2 into 100, it is 50. And here we put the letters on one side, we're going to have P minus 3Q is equal to 10. So there's an invisible one. 1 into 10 is a 10. Negative 3 into 10 is negative 3.33. We never consider negative quantities, so it's just for sketching purposes that you know it's starting from here. Then we calculated our equilibrium price was what? 64. That's where the 64 is coming from. And our equilibrium quantity was 18. That is where the 18 is going. So which of these triangles is consumer surplus and which one is a producer surplus? A and B. So A is a consumer surplus. B is a producer surplus. So what are the parameters for A? The distance from here to here is what? 86. Distance from here to here is what? 54. Distance for the base here to here is what? 18. So if we're going to look at these two triangles, it's 36 against 18, and there's 54 against what? 18. So this is area A and this is area B. So this is the consumer surplus, which is given by half base times height. So our base is 18, our height is 36. Producer surplus, our base is the same 18, and our height is the same 54. Different 54. So when you compute each of these ones, you're going to get the surpluses for both, for each of them respectively. So 18 times 36 divided by 2 is 324. 18 times 54 divided by 2 is 486. When I add these two, I get 810. This is called our social welfare or total surplus. Are there any questions so far?
Not yet.
Now, government will intervene in these mechanisms by introducing what we call floor prices and price seals. So, for instance, we agreed that the equilibrium is 64 and units is 18. Because of the black market and exploitation, government will bring in a maximum price at which sellers should charge. This is called a price seal. And can also bring a minimum price at which the consumers must bargain for, which is called a floor price, a minimum. Collectively, these are called. So if we, for instance, they say you don't charge below 50 and don't charge above 74. So this will give us a disequilibrium in the market. So we have X and Y, which will be collectively called our deadweight loss. So the distance from 64 to 74 is 10. Distance from 0 to this is 10. And we go here again. This is 10 is always the same. The distance from 50 to 64 is 14. So we'll calculate the area for this half BH. Our base is 10, our height is 10. Out of half of 100 is 50. Same here, our base is 10, our height is what? 14. So here we're going to have 70. So when we add these two, we're going to get 120. So this is not called the total surplus. In this case, it is called the deadweight loss. Deadweight loss. Right. Any questions so far? Are we clear so far?
Yes.
So we now do a quick, can you remember what is deadweight loss? What is consumer surplus? What is our equilibrium? And what is our tax and the subsidy? Can you remember from what we've just learned? What is
Yes. Yeah, I remember the floor price, the price ceiling. Yeah. These are those.
Okay, so deadweight loss is an economic inefficiency that causes a disequilibrium in the market affected by external factors like taxes, subsidies, and price controls like floor prices. So it is simply a reduction in the total economic surplus. Consumer surplus is simply the economic benefit or satisfaction that consumers receive when they purchase a product at a lower than the equilibrium, whereas the producer surplus is simply the economic benefit that suppliers receive a sale price higher than their minimum acceptable. So we also talked about important issues like taxes and subsidies. What are taxes and what are subsidies? So a tax is part of the fiscal policies that a government will have as a mandatory charge imposed by the government on the individuals to their entities to raise revenue for public. So they are levied on the supplier and the producer. Subsidy is the financial assistance that is given by government to industries, businesses, or a certain sector to encourage economic activities. So these ones are always given to lower the cost of production and subsequently cost of living. So with that being said, suppose we have the same equations we had. The price was given by 100 minus 2Q. And the supply is given by 10 plus 3Q. And we are told that a tax is imposed on the consumer of 10 kwacha. What is the new equilibrium? So price is equal to 100 plus 2Q minus 2Q. So for the consumer, it is on the demand function. And now we're being asked to calculate the new equilibrium. So the tax is 10 kwacha. So when we add the 10 kwacha to the 100, our tax will be, will give us our demand function of 110. And consumer price, producer surplus, producer function be affected. So here at equilibrium, remember, demand is equal to supply. So our demand is 110 minus 2Q, and our supply is 10 plus 3Q. So what happens here? The 10 will go and subtract. What happens here? These will go and add. So we're going to have 100 is equal to 5Q. And Q, in this case, is going to be 20. So when you substitute a 20 in any of these two, this one and or 110, you get the same figure. So when you put a 20 on the supply, like I said, supply is always very easy to work with. So we're going to have 10 plus 3Q. So where there is a Q, we put what? 20. So 10 plus 60 is equal to 70. So we have our equilibrium price and our equilibrium quantity. So we have 70 and 20. So look at what will happen here. So if there's a tax, it will cause a shift outwards. So here, because of the tax of 10 kwacha, our equilibrium will now change from 18 to 20. Our equilibrium quantity will increase from 64 to 70. So this is the implication of an increase in tax, a tax imposed. So you see how taxes affect. So when there's a tax, our demand function will shift from D1 to D2, shift outwards. When there's a subsidy, to shift inwards, because there's an assistance, so the demand curve will go inwards. So now we go back to the factors that affect demand. What are the factors that affect demand?
The income of the consumers,
Mm-hmm.
the advertising that is being done,
Mm-hmm.
the price of the good, whether the price is low or it's high,
Mm-hmm.
the presence of substitute goods also.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think technology also plays a part.
That's true. So demand is affected by several factors. So mentioned a number of them. Just to elaborate, there are many. So we have price of that particular good. We have consumer income, the related goods, which could be substitute or complementary, the population and demographics. These all affect your demand for a particular good. And now this gives us the demand function, which is given by function in terms of the price of that good, price of the substitute good, price of the complementary good, income, advertising, population, taste and technology, and other factors. Now, demand is closely related to the sensitivity, which comes in terms of elasticity. So elasticity of demand is the responsiveness of demand due to changes in these factors. So elasticity of demand is a percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in price. It is given by Q2 minus Q1 over Q1 divided by P2 minus P1 over P1. So this is how we calculate it. Using calculus, elasticity of demand is the Q over the P times price over quantity. Or elasticity of demand is B times price over quantity. If you're using a direct demand function, or if you're using an inverse demand function, it is 1 over B times price over quantity. This is the easiest computation you can ever use. So suppose you have a direct demand function, which is 10 minus 2p, and we're given the price is 3/4. Calculate the elasticity of demand. So this is a direct demand function, and the direct demand function is given in this form. So our B in this case is what? -2. So when you put the 3 in the price there, it will be 10 minus 6 to get a 4. So our Q is 4. So elasticity of demand using the direct demand function will be B times price over quantity. So our slope in this case is -2. Our price is 3/4, and our quantity is 4. So here we have -6 over 4, which is -1.5. So elasticity is in the range as follows. If it's between 0 and -1, we say it is inelastic. Inelastic means the degree to which you increase price is smaller than the decrease in the quantity demand, the increase in quantity demanded. Then if you get exactly 1, it is unit elastic. If it's greater than 1, it is elastic. So this figure is greater than 1 absolute. So when I say 1 absolute, is ignoring the signs. If it's 1 point something, 2 point something, all that is elastic. 0 point something, it is inelastic. The same question could come. Elasticity is given by P is equal to 10 minus 2Q. And we're given that our Q in this case is what? 3 units. So this is an inverse demand because P is subject. So when you put 3 there, our P will be what? 10 minus 3, 2 times 3. So meaning our P here will be 10 minus 6, which is 4. Then because P is subject, the formula here is 1 over -B. Don't put negative because we already have a negative there. The final answer ultimately must be what? So our B is -2. So here we put 1 over -2. The price is what? 4. Quantity is 3. 4 over -6. What do we get? -0.667. So this is between 0 and -1. So this is inelastic. So for elasticity of demand, you need to understand one key concept is that you can only comment it in terms of demand being unit elastic or inelastic. So to that effect, demand can also come in a multimodal form, where given demand as 10 minus 2px plus 5py plus 10m. So we have introduced new parameters in this case, being income and the price of another good. So in this case, we can now calculate the cross price elasticity, the income elasticity of demand, and what the effect is in terms of interpretation and also applicability. So you also be given the prices, for instance, of good X. Maybe this is 2/4. Good Y, this is 3/4. Good, the income is 5/4. So first find the annual demand. by substituting the figures there. So where there is the price of good X, you put 2. Where there's the price of good Y, you put what has been given, which will often be given in exam setup. So this will be 10 minus 4 plus 15 plus 50. So this will be 6, 21, 61. So the demand is 61 in there. Any questions so far?
No.
Right. If that is clear, we can now calculate the elasticities. So when elasticity moves from one good to another, it's called cross price elasticity. So in this case, we want to look at how elasticity will move from good X to good X. This is called on price elasticity. So X against X. Remember, it's a direct demand, so it's P times price over quantity. So the slope for good X here is what? The B for good X is what? -2. The B for good Y is what? +5. The B for income is what? +10. So whenever we get a negative cross price elasticity, it is a complementary good. A positive, it is a substitute for income. So if we're dealing with what? This is 0, negative, and positive. So if we have a negative, it is a what? Complementary good. If it's a positive, it's a substitute good. This is for cross price elasticity. For income, if it's a negative, it's an inferior good. If it's a positive, it is a normal good. So let's calculate. So in this case, our B is -2. The price of good X is what? 2 kwacha, and the quantity we just calculated as 61. So this is 4 over 61. Divided by that, we're going to get -0.66. So this means it is 0.066. This means that it is what? Inelastic. If we're going to calculate cross price elasticity between good X and good Y, it is a gradient for good X. Gradient for good Y is 5, positive. The price of good Y was 3 over 61. So that would be 15 divided by 61. We're going to get positive 0.25. So since it's a positive, remember our key in terms of good X and Y, if it's a positive, it's a substitute good. So good X and Y are substitutes. You could also tell from the transaction here, if the signs are opposite, they are competing goods as substitutes. If there was negative here and negative there, I would say they are complementing each other, complement. And finally, the income elasticity, the gradient for the income over income times the quantity itself. So the gradient for the income here is what? 10. The price of the income or the income itself is 5 over 61. This is 50 over 61. This will give us 0.819. So it's a positive, this is a normal good. It's a positive, it's a substitute good. So whenever you get a positive according to our key, normal good or substitute. If they're negative, inferior good or complementary good. So an inferior good is collected or calculated under income elasticity and arises when we have a negative. In definition, it's a good that you demand less of as your income goes up. Example, Salaola clothes, black and white TV, they become inferior as our income goes up. Are there any questions at this point? Is it clear?
Yes.
All right.